Shalom Bahashim Yahweh Kodesh Yisrael. This the tribal minister Nasik Shala and Dean Ben Ami Mortazar Yam Ben Yasha Allah Senior, the mighty Hebrew. I give all praise and honor to Yahweh Suf, the supreme, intelligent, powerful one of our forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Those striving for righteousness' sake, I say into the family, Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism rise and worldwide. It's definitely an honor and a privilege to be here. I'm going to invite a couple of people before I start the presentation, before I go to work. I think this is going to be a powerful presentation. I'm only going to be here for a few minutes, a good 45 minutes, because I got to go to work. I'm on a swing shift. So, all right, shalom, shalom, my Lord. How you feeling? All right, so let me go ahead. Yahai. So let me go ahead and invite a few people. What's going on with Brother Lord Zebulon? I see you, man. Inbox me that your link, Zebulon, to all your information pertaining to your merchandise, so I can put that on the New Hebrew Hype website where I have my wife. She's constructing the website now. It's banging. So we just trying to advertise real scholarly Hebrew Israelite material. So inbox me all your information and website, as well as the Mighty Hebrew Israelite.com, excuse me, the Mighty Hebrew Israelite.com. I'm saying the Mighty Hebrew Israelite.com. I meant to say the Mighty Hebrew.com on my website as well. But I think what I'm going to be bringing forth is a powerful presentation. I was reading over the book of Esther for the past 2 days. Every time I would like get ready for work, I'll read like a chapter here, a chapter there. You know, I've read this book so many times, but where I'm at right now, 43 going on 44, my understanding has broadened, you know, over the years. This is why I love the Tanakh so much. It's because when you dive into it, the understanding of Torah broadens as you grow and develop as a Hebrew Israelite sovereign national. I see a lot of people, they on here, maybe they're intrigued about the title, which is a very good title, you know. And right now, there is, from what I'm seeing on social media, a major crisis in male and female relationships. And I don't mean just Israel, I mean in general within the so-called African-American community. Statistically, 79% of African-Americans or so-called African-Americans that, you know, are married end up in divorce within 5 years. And we just talking about so-called African-Americans that don't even know that they're Israel. 79% is very high, that the marriage rate within that so-called African-American community is only 79% rate ended in divorce within 5 years. That's a major problem. And it's a problem that, you know, we don't want to trickle in Israel, you know. So let me go ahead and deal with this. As y'all know, I got to announce my Isha having a baby, due date August the 1st. That's her right there. That's my Isha right there. Hey, baby. Yeah. So her due date is I was about to say next month, but in August. So again, Lord Zebulon, make sure you send me that stuff in the inbox, all your scholarly work on your website, and then my Isha, she's constructing her new website, the Hebrew Hype. So she'll more than likely link that to it. So let's say if somebody go on her website, they can see your information and then they can link to your website, because the scholarly research is hard. So this is only going to take me a few minutes. It's not even going to be the full chapter, but it's going to be a point taken for you brothers. Hey, what's going on, brothers? For you brothers that have good wives, stick with your wife or your wives, man. Because if not, you're going to be caught up in this situation. I'm so glad the Most High blessed me with a beautiful wife. Shalom, baby. Shalom. Everybody saying shalom. Shalom. Bless me with a beautiful wife. You know what I mean? I'm so happy to have a beautiful wife. So let's start this chapter real fast. It's only going to be half of the chapter because I got to go to work. So it says, we're at Esther, chapter 1, verse 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Xerxes, which reigned from India even unto Cush or Kawash, Ethiopia, over 127 provinces. That in those days, when the king of Xerxes sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan, the palace, in the 3rd year of his reign, he made a feast unto all his princes and his servants, the power of Persia and Media, the nobles and princes of the provinces being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the honor of his excellent majesty many days, even 180 days. So he's showing, you know how when you in prestigious power and you dealing with the aristocratic state, meaning heads of state, government, princes, whether they're ambassadors or whatever, when you in a certain position of power, of leadership, there's a certain way you conduct yourself. And back in them times, and even today, a lot of people, you know, adore their guests by showing their riches and giving their guests gifts and making sure that they maintain. Okay, let's continue on. It says, okay, let's go. Where was I at? Okay. And when these days were expired, the king made a feast unto the people that were present in Shushan, the palace, both unto great and small 7 days in the court of the garden of the king's palace, where were white, green, and blue hangings fashioned with cords of fine linen and purple to silver rings and pillows of marble. The beds were of gold and silver, upon the pavement of red and blue and white and black marble. And you can, you know, go to the book of Esther, chapter 7, verse 8, and that line. Continue on. And they gave them drink in vessels of gold, the vessels being diverse from one from another, and royal wine in abundance according to the state of the king. And the drinking was according to the law. None did comply. For so the king had appointed to all of the officers of his house that they should do according to every man's pleasure. Also, Vashti, the queen, made a feast for the women in the royal house which belonged to King Xerxes. On the 17th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Menhuman, Biztah, Harbonah, Bigthar, and Abathar, Zetar, and Korkos, the 7 chamberlains that served in the presence of Xerxes the king, to bring Vashti the queen before the king with the crown royal, to show the people and the princess her beauty, for she was fair to look on. So, you know, when you have a beautiful wife, you know how we are as men, you know what I mean? Especially when you're dealing as a man of power, you know, you want to, like, you know, show your woman. That's just what we do as men, you know? So this is what he wanted to do. He wanted to show her beauty to the people, you know what I mean? Watch this. It says, but the queen refused to come at the king's commandment by his chamberlains. Therefore was the king very angry, and kindled fire burned in him. So she refused in public to come to him. So now he's angry. But that's not the key nor the moral to the story as to what I'm bringing up. Watch this, y'all. It says this. Then the king said to the wise men, which knew the times, for so was the king's manner towards all that knew the law and judgment. And next unto him was Karshina, Shethar, Amathar, Tarshish, Mirish, Marshana, and Memucan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, which saw the king's face. Now, They see his countenance. You know how you can see if your brother or sister angry about something, it's going to come on his countenance. Hey, Abba, I'm bringing the lesson that you taught me years ago, so I'm bringing it forth to the people. Just peep it. So you see the face of your brother or sister, and you know that something is wrong. And he felt embarrassed. I can imagine as a king in a position of power that he's in, if he's telling his queen, his wife, to come to him, and she like, no, in front of everybody, that's a feeling like, and the other princes, they see what's going on. Now watch it. Are you funny, Alva? You funny. Now watch this. Peep it, y'all. It says, which saw the king's face, and which sat the first in the kingdom. What shall we do unto the queen Vashti according to law? Because she has not performed the commandment of the king of Xerxes by the chamberlains. And Memucan answered before the king and the princes, Vashti the queen have not done wrong to the king only, but also to all the princes and to all the people that are in the provinces of the king of Xerxes. Stop. You got to understand what he meant by that. It wasn't just the king she offended, but she offended that whole cabinet, all the chamberlains, the people around. Why? Because as we continue to read, you're going to see that because of her disrespect, it will cause other sisters of the Medo-Persian Empire to be disrespectful to their husbands. You're going to see this. This is why it's very important for the daughters of Zion to be careful how they conduct themselves when it pertains to their Lord or their husband in the general public. Because you can be a stumbling block for other sisters to disrespect their lords. Watch, I'm gonna show you, because this is scripture, right? Hallelujah. It says, verse 17, for this deed of the queen shall come abroad into all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes, when it shall be reported. The king of Xerxes commanded Vashti the queen to be brought in before him, but she came not. See, even in ancient times, the people understood the psychology of learned behavior. So if you're a public figure, or if you don't even necessarily have to be a public figure, you're a married man. You know, we talking from the highest to the lowest. You a married man, and yet Isha disrespect you openly in front of the people. Most people think, look, she disrespected him in front of everybody. But it wasn't a disrespect towards him. It was a disrespect to all the men in Israel. Because now it causes women to think that it's okay to disrespect men in the open, when we can clearly see this is a problem. And I'm saying this because I'm looking on social media and I'm seeing, men and women relationships, from marriage even to non-marriage, just brother and sister, friend, foe, whatever the case may be. There is a gross disrespect when it comes to male-female relationships in Israel, no matter what level it's on, whether if you're talking doctoral, marriage, whatever the case may be, you see this disrespect. Now, as men in Israel, we have to take this example here and deal just as we see when it comes to our people. Something is off. It said, something is wrong. You are not supposed to be, you have the gift to hustle, but you got to tap into. Oh yeah, that's something totally different right now. So your free time. Oh yeah, I know, sister. Yeah, we're definitely getting to that, but this ain't the time for that right now. But yeah, you absolutely correct. You know, a long time ago, a couple of years ago, I was on that road, but because Israel as a nation, they're not moving as a body politic when it came to spreading Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism worldwide. You know, and there's a process. You know, sometimes even if you got your own business or your so-called own business, you still operating as a juristic being. That's another story, another topic. Matter of fact, I will do another lesson on that topic, Sister Shamari Israel, on that specific topic that you're talking about, because you're absolutely correct. You know what I mean? But there's reasons why I'm moving like this right now. There was a time where I was deeply rooted in that thought process, what you're saying. But the reality of the subject matter is that our people, they're not on the level of Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalism yet. It takes a collective body politic to move on a level like that. You know what I'm saying? Especially if you're talking about dealing in sovereignty on levels like that. So I will expound on that in the near future for you. And if you want to look at any of my videos, you can go on YouTube. There's hundreds of videos and teachings that I've been teaching all over the country, all over the world. You can also go to www.themightyhebrew.com. You can, you know, see the works that I've been doing over the years. But back to the point on this. So now, if we go to verse 17 again, for this deed, this deed of the queen shall come abroad unto all women, so that they shall despise their husbands in their eyes when it shall be reported. The king Xerxes commanded Vesti, the queen, to be brought before him, but she came not. Likewise shall the ladies of Persia and Media say this day unto all the king's princes which have heard of the deed of the queen. Thus shall there arise too much contempt and wrath. You see that? Because what happens is, let's say, for instance, if, you know, that happened to our anointed. Let's just put a hypothetical out there. Our anointed, our Moshiach in Israel, as me being Torah Senate. Y'all know, in my understanding, there were many Musakim, many anointed from out of the nation of Israel amongst the kings. So let's say we have the Malik, that's Moshiach in our midst. You know what I'm saying? And his woman or his princess disrespecting openly. So now let's say if your woman disrespect you and you try to correct her. And if that Moshiach didn't correct that woman in the open, you know what she can say? How you gonna correct me when such and such disrespect the Moshiach? This is why these things have to immediately be dealt with. Immediately, no matter how much you love that woman. I don't care how much you love that woman. There's something called honor in Israel that Israel lack. If your woman openly disrespects you openly like that, you have to immediately put her up. You have to. If not, then it's going to cause a psychological virus to spread throughout the nation of Israel, where women in general just like, shit, I ain't got to listen to you. Our own queen or our own princess don't even respect her prince or her king. So why I got to respect you? This is what's going on here in the book of Esther, the first chapter. Watch this. Watch this. Verse 19. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him. This shows the misunderstanding of people that think kings and princes, they rule alone. No, they have a cabinet of people that advises them. You see what I'm saying? Yeah, your actions in public are a reflection of your ish. And your actions at home send him out in public, treating women accordingly. Cain, Nasika, Dina, Cain. And this is what we have to come to the realization and understanding. We have to be careful, not only as to how a woman treats a king, but also even vice versa, how a king treats his woman, his queen, his princess. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, it goes both ways. You can't think you're gonna get respect from a woman, but you beating on her, you doing all this evil stuff to her, and then you expect to be respected. But in this retrospect, we talking about men that's being disrespected when disrespect shouldn't be. Because as we see thus far, we seen that Vesti had the best of everything. She even had her own princesses. She was a woman of power and respect, and she disrespected our Lord. Watch this. Listen to what his visors, or King Xerxes' visors, say to him. Watch this. This is very important. Verse 19. If it please the king, let there go a royal commandment from him, and let it be written among the laws of the Persians and Medes, that it be not altered, that Vesti come not no more before the king Xerxes, and let the king give her royal estate unto another that is better than she. See that? See, the ancients, they understood. Like you heard the old saying, what's one man's trash is another man's treasure. You heard that before. You heard these cliches. Many of these cliches are really cliches that go back to an ancient understanding of what we would call karmatic law, you know, or better yet, Torah law. When you go into the book of Ecclesiastes, you see in chapter 3, you see the cause and effect. So whatever, you know, my mother always say, yo, you make that bed, boy, laying it hard. What goes around comes around, etc., etc. So if you can't handle the household, if you can't respect the order, then there's somebody that'll do it better. This is what we see. Watch this. Verse 20. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire. That's why, you know, when, you know, you see certain honorable brothers that went through these situations, and they'll put it, let's say, on social media out in the public. They'll say, oh, you supposed to keep that private. No, not when you in leadership of power. You supposed to publicize that, like, yo, this was a disrespectful act. And this has to be stopped. This is why it's important for us to come together as a sovereign nation and help support a Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationalistic Supreme Court. Why? Because in that day, when somebody break Torah constitution abominably, that a memorandum can be spread amongst all the camps, all the communities publicly, and make a public announcement when somebody commit these type of acts, that they'll be severed not only from the person they did these things to, but to the nation as a whole. This is how you deal with certain matters as it pertains to Torah constitution. This is how we become a government in exile once we start manifesting like that. The brother said, what? Too many of our sisters are still lusting after white men and much hood spirit diva, Miss Independent. That's true. This is why we got to focus on who's who. See, it don't really start objectively. It starts subjectively. So subjectively, then objectively, you start to attach yourself to like minds. So if you got a bunch of us that's moving as Hebrew Israelite sovereign nationals versus Hebrew Israelite religious nutcases, we all can come into that same mind state and say, you know what? This is how we're going to move. And we orchestrate it through actualization. When there's a violation in our community, when there's a disrespect of a leader, you know what I'm saying? There's a memorandum put out there so the whole nation of Israel can see. So then it'll put fear in other Israelites not to move like this. Watch, because you're going to see it. Watch what it says. And when the king's decree, which he shall make, shall be published throughout all his empire, for it is great, all the wives shall give to their husbands honor, both great and small. And the saying pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word Amemukan. Right? Because the sisters would see like, shoot, I ain't going to disrespect my Lord. I ain't trying to be publicly blasted like that. You know what I'm saying? This is why even when you look into a constitution and when abominations occurred, I'm not just talking about regular sin, I'm talking about abominations that are worthy of death. When somebody committed an abomination and after they trial or whatever the case may be, they openly, was took off the land of the living in front of the people to put the fear of y'all in the people. The reason why there's this gross disrespect in Israel because the people don't fear y'all. That's what it is. They don't fear because we a nation inside of a nation, but we have this nation that we're in protecting those that are guilty. You see what I'm saying? Of these type of abominations. That's why you can have a woman that'll commit adultery on her husband and nobody won't say nothing about it. Or you will have somebody that'll practice homosexuality or lesbianism and nobody will say nothing about it. Or you will have somebody blaspheme the Creator's name and nobody will say nothing about it. We'll say, persecute, destroy the child molesters, which child molesters under Torah should be put to death. But don't try to make it seem as though it's an indifference when it comes to one that commits adultery, because under Torah, they're both worthy of death. When you deal with bestiality, that's worthy of death. When you disrespect your parents, remember the bubbling drunk that disrespected his parents? And his parents put him to death, brought him to the whole community in the Sanhedrin, in Torah. See, we so caught up in this society over here, you know what I mean, that these abominations are looked at as nothing. Even when you see us upholding the Shabbat, remember when that dude grabbed them sticks? What the Most High tell Moshe and Aaron to do? To bring that man in a public forum and stone him to death. Why? Because what he was doing was causing the people spiritually and psychologically to break Torah. It was of utmost importance to conduct yourself in a certain manner when it came to dealing with Yahweh. It really was. So now, having that understanding, we have to understand the pinnacle of seriousness when we dealing with Yah. That's why when you look at the word tefillah, which means they translate it as prayer, but the root word is palah, which means to judge oneself. Before you can even, I remember being in Kiphaim, man, and Prince Kaz, Prince Yisrael, my Abba. Before you can even approach the Creator, you have to ask if it pleases the Creator to approach his throne. Because we so wicked and so grotesque in the sight of Yah that, we not even worthy to even come to Yah on a manner like that because we so evil, So what I'm saying is we have to understand what we're dealing with here. There has to be a new wave of honor that comes back to our people. You remember in the Apocrypha, it was in the Apocrypha, when the mother and the 9 brothers, it was either 7 or 9 brothers, were being enforced to eat the king's meat, the swine flesh and all that, and to serve the gods of the other nations of the Hellenistic world, and they wouldn't do it. And they was throwing each of the sons off a cliff, and at the end, it left the mother And she says she would rather die before she would, abandon Yah, his law, statutes, and commandments. My point that I'm saying is there was a certain type of honor that our people had in them that that we don't have today. Even if you watch classic Run Shaw brother kung fu movies, there was a honor that our people had. You know what I'm saying? There was an honor that our people had or the ancient East had that don't exist today. That's why you're at the saying there's no honor amongst thieves. And then at the same time, we hear people robbing and stealing the Most High's words. So these people that come on social media, they really have no honor. For if a man is with a woman and that woman was never declared openly a divorce, and then you see another man with her, or if you hear somebody practicing openly, knowing that they were Israelite, practicing homosexuality or lesbianism, and then they practice it, and then we still befriend these type of people, and we say, oh, we can't judge because we in captivity. That is the excuse that our people continuously make. We in captivity, so we can't judge. But you judge the child molester, the pedophile. Why? Because it's socially grotesque in the Western world. So are y'all really following Yah? Or let me put it better. Is your power, Yahweh, subordinate to the powers of the nations that we in captivity in? Or are the nations' powers subordinate to Yah? Because all these things that I mentioned are abominations unto the Creator. A child molester is no different than an adulterer in the eyes of Yah, and under our own sovereign government, they will both be put to death the same exact way. There is no difference from one who premeditatedly murders his own brother, his own sister, his own kinsman. What's different from him versus the child molester? What's different? See, we under this mind state, we accept the murderer in our community, but we won't accept the child molester. But where does the Torah say that you are to accept the murderer? There's a difference from killing somebody versus murdering them. Okay? My whole thing is, what does the Torah say about premeditated murder? What happens to a person in our own sovereign land if we found out by the way of our magistrate and the officers of the court going to do the proper investigation and find out that somebody was premeditatedly murdered? You think that, he's a murderer, she's a child molester, so we'll kill the child molester, but let the murderer live. Where's that at in the Torah? That ain't nowhere in the Torah. No, they both get put to death accordingly. Oh, it don't say nowhere about a woman can't lay with another woman. What you mean? When it talks about the sodomite and not making a whore out of the daughter of Zion, it uses the word sodomite, quadesh. Don't get it confused with quadosh, two different words. Quadesh is a homosexual that they translate as sodomite. And in that same verse in Leviticus, when it speaks about not making a whore out of the daughter of Zion, it uses the feminine quadesha. So the proper translation should be, do not make a homosexual out of the sons of Israel, and do not make lesbians out of the daughters of Zion or the daughters of Israel, period. But because of the mistranslation in the King James Version, you got people running around saying, oh, it don't say nowhere in the Bible that a woman can't lie with another woman. But it does. The word is quadesha. That is a lesbian. They are not to lay with one. That's wicked in the sight of the Most High, and they are to be put to death under Torah if we was in our own land. This is a fact. This is not something that I'm making up. This is something that we got Brian Dawson, Konawak, one of my students and my close brother. He said the word is quadesha. He's looking it up in the Hebrew right now. So my point that I'm saying is we cannot pick and choose any longer who we want to attack because of our own personal preferences. We have to deal with what the Torah say. These are sins and these are abominations. So let's continue on. We only got 2 more verses. Watch this. It says, no, 1 more verse. It says, for he sent letters into all the king's provinces. Exactly, just like Prince Israel was saying to me. You know, when we had a discussion, one of the things we need to do is once we start to know who's who in the Israelite community, we have their email addresses. We have certain ways to contact. So when a man or a woman violates on high levels like this, we can issue this out to all the leadership in every camp and community. So let's say, for instance, you commit an abomination, you know, in a school or a camp, and you know we're not in our own land, so we can't put them to death, but we can exile them. So once we exile them, they can't jump to another camp, because that other camp, no matter if you Torah only or Messianic, they'll automatically know, yo, he did or she did an abomination at this specific camp, so you can't come to this camp. Period. That's what exile means. Not exile from this one camp. You cannot practice homosexuality. You cannot molest children. You cannot practice lesbianism. You cannot be an adulterer. You cannot act like you a prophet of the Most High and trying to lead the people away from the Creator. That's why I'm saying a lot of people, you know what I mean, where you say there is a right way and a wrong way to polygyny. Yeah, that's another topic. Okay. And what I'm saying is you can't, like, for instance, you got Israelites on social media. Like you got Israelites on social media right now that we all know that used to serve the Creator of heaven and earth and then turned around and now they worship another deity that's in total opposition to the Creator. And they're enticing other brothers and sisters to go that direction. Under the 13th chapter of Deuteronomy, if we was in our own land, they will be put to death. That's an abomination unto the Creator of heaven and earth. That's abominable. But we still befriend these people. So now by us befriending these people, I'm not saying me